Everybody knows where are my slides? That's maybe of some help. Let me start when this is waiting for this solved. I take my time for thanking for having invited me to this conference. Very interesting, and to confess a thing before starting my presentation, that my presentation will be much more boring. Because I've been asked to speak about a boring subject that is copyright, and my specialty is even a more boring thing that is a very particular application of technologies in the management of copyright. So it's a boring cube presentation. Without picture, rather some mathematical formulas and some figures. So probably we are now in the, yeah, probably I can, okay. So about what I will speak is being aware of how much boring a presentation like this may be. I try to approach the problem taking one phrase that became a cliche, that everybody repeat, and try to look if there are robust assumptions behind this phrase, and which are the conditions when this phrase is true and when it is not. So the phrase I will approach is that copyright is an obstacle in the digitization programs of the 20th century cultural heritage, in particular in the book sector that I am specialist of. I work for the Italian Publisher Association, so my field is very limited. Just to add another layer of boring, it's just books. So the point is, which is the assumption when the copyright is an obstacle for a digitization program. It's just in one case that this is very true. That is when the, thank you, when the program is entirely funded by public money. In this case, more than an obstacle, copyright is a cost, and so as a cost is also an obstacle. But if there is some private partnership involved, copyright may also be an enabler. Why? Because private people usually expect some return from a digitization program, and copyright is traditionally the way for guaranteeing the return, through ensuring the return of investment of people that is engaged in making publications, even on republication. There are actually some difficulty because I don't see possibility. That's probably better. Okay, thank you. Sorry. When there is a private involvement, the involvement of a private company, there may be two models actually to provide a return of the investment. One is based on copyright. The alternative is there. And this, when there are programs like that proposed by Google to many libraries, for instance, but it's not the only company, it's the most famous programs, but not the only one, where those companies ask for some form of exclusivity that are contractually based, sometimes applying, very often applying also to public domain works, but there is a request for exclusivity to allow this company to exploit the content that is digitized in order to have a return on investment. In the first case, the copyright is essential, it's an enabler of the investment. And the second may become again an obstacle, because for those companies, the coincidence of an exclusivity by the original copyright holder and the other exclusivity that they are asking the library for making the exploitation may be an obstacle, because there is a conflict between the two claimed exclusivities. So for sure, copyright is a cost. There's no doubt of that. And this cost consists of 3 parts, actually. One is the remuneration of the right holder. The other is the search for the right holder when you have a big library collection to digitize. And the third is the negotiation with this right holder, because you have to ask and you have to make a proposal, and then the other should agree on this proposal or not. So the digital library dilemma may be seen in this model in this way, that there are many cases where the costs just for the search and negotiation is higher than the value that that particular deal provides to the digitization program. So this makes simply impossible to make the digitization. So in this respect, it becomes an obstacle because there are no remuneration that allow to remedy this problem, because the problem is not the remuneration, the problem is the negotiation and the transactional cost associated to the right management. And of course, it is always to be stressed that this is not just a matter of how much high this cost is. It's always a matter if this cost is higher than the value, because there are many cases where the value of the exploitation of a certain content is very high, so you can afford with no problems the transactional cost. So the debate around these issues can be interpreted in this way, that in particular when you speak about orphan works are the works where the cost just for the search is too high to be sustainable. And the recent legislation that has been issued by the European Commission, and in these days the deadline for the member states is 29th of October, so it's very close to be there. I was saying that the idea is, in that case, to cap the cost for the search, not to oblige the libraries to search in infinite way, but to have just a reasonable cap for this search, and then to get the permission of digitizing without any discussion with the right holder. But however, I don't think, to be honest, that this is a solution, because it concerns just one element of the cost I was mentioning, that is the cost of the search. Doesn't approach at all the cost of a negotiation. All the experience in the publishing field, but also more recently in the library digitization program, is that the negotiation cost is even higher than the search cost. So when you have solved the search cost, just having put a cap to any individual search, you have not solved the problem for the libraries. So the alternative is to move to another concept that has been introduced more recently, but is already since some years, that is to make projects related to the out-of-commerce works instead of just focusing the orphan works. The idea is there to cap in any to provide a solution that reduces the negotiation cost through a collective management of the rights. That is the very traditional way for reducing the transactional cost for at least one century and a couple of decades. Why just for the out-of-commerce works and not for every works? Because in the out-of-commerce works, the relation between the cost and the value is on the side of the value being the cost being much higher than the value, because there is not commercial exploitation in this moment, so there is not a high commercial value for that for that works. And I value here always economic, financial value, not cultural value. So just to be clear, I just realized that may create misunderstanding. There is no intention to give any consideration about the cultural value. On the other side, it's relevant because in the commercial, when a book is in commerce, it's quite high, easy to find the right holder. So the search cost is very low because, of course, there are the catalogs, you find immediately the right holder. There had been, you probably know, in 2011, a memorandum of understanding about auto-commerce works where all the organization of the stakeholders, libraries on one side, and the authors and publishers and collective management organization committed in go ahead in this direction. And there are some key principles that I will not go through into the details. What is interesting to me in this case is that this design a new form of collective management, a new model of collective management, because collective management in the tradition of the more than 1 century tradition of the collective management always applied to every type of works for secondary exploitation. So not for the primary exploitation, but for instance, the book setter doesn't apply for making the deals between authors and publishers for a book, but applies for the photocopy rights, for instance, or other things like that. And this is the general understanding of the collective management in the history. In this case, the type of exploitation that is concerned is the most primary, if this expression has any sense in English, that exists, that because it's the making available in the internet. But what is secondary, again, just from a commercial viewpoint, is the type of work. So there is a change in the way we always understood the collective right management, because it applies to a very primary exploitation, but for just some categories of works. So if all this is true, there are some trends in the right management in this field that are possible voluntary agreements between right holders and libraries of two types. One that just apply to, as I said, to auto-commerce work and concern the primary exploitation, so every right related to the making available, reproduction and making available in the internet. The other possibility, at least from a theoretical viewpoint, is that apply to all the works, but is very limited in the use. And the only case I know is in Norway, and in Norway they have this bokhylla, that means in Norwegian bookshelf, program that applies to every book, including the e-commerce books, but the type of use is very limited. It's just on streaming without download and many other restrictions that make this project, in my view, less interesting also from the viewpoint of the readers. The other, instead, is now quite developed in France and is going to be applied in Germany, and there are other cases that will probably come soon. I think that the recent legislation in the UK allowing the extended collective management also will foster programs like this, limited though to auto-commerce. The most interesting and advanced use case that I would like to tell you about is the RELIRE case in France. RELIRE stands for, it's a very nice acronym, it stands for Registre des livres indisponibles pour réédition électronique, so the registry of the auto-commerce works for republication in digital form. That also means in France reread, as you probably know. This is a completely new concept of managing the rights in this domain, because the rights are for the republication of an out-of-commerce work are mandated to a collective management organization that then may sell this right according to a standard license, initially to the publishers that originally published that book, and then to the market, and also to libraries. What this allowed, they started with creating a list of 60,000 books in 2013, and out of this, there is an opt-out possibility by the authors or publishers to, if they don't like that their rights are managed by Sophia, or in any case according to this scheme. And there were 5,000 withdrawn in the 6-month period that is provided by the law before the license became effective. And what is interesting, that there had been 341 publishers asking for licenses for books that were out of commerce, and committed themselves to republish those books in a number of 28 more thousand books. That means more than half of the original list. And this is very, very, very interesting, because one of the key problems in the digitization program for the mass digitization programs for the libraries is the problem of the money. Apart the cost of the right management, including the remuneration, there is not the money in the public budgets in most of the countries in Europe to sustain the rest of the cost. That it's difficult to estimate how much which is the percentage of the cost of the right management and remuneration is. I think, however, according to my experience that I explored several cases in Europe, that is less than 10%, probably more close or even less than 5%. So what is lacking is the other 95% of money. So the fact that, according to a scheme like the French, it is possible to have again in the possibility for readers to access books without any money, because exploiting the copyright, there is again the possibility to read that books, is something that I believe is significant. It's true that also the alternative of just giving one large conglomerate to digitize a big library being remunerated thanks to advertising is also an option. They ask similar exclusivity. The license provided by Sophia is lasting 10 years. It is more or less the same that, for instance, Google asks the library as an exclusivity. Personally, it may be a partial view, but I think that it's preferable to have 300 and more different SMEs that ask for republication, just to have one single big conglomerate. In this case, in the example case, also coming from outside Europe, but also if it was European, was not so different, providing the republication of our cultural heritage. The role of technologies, that is my final remarks, is there is a very famous quote by Charles Clark that I think is still valid when he said that the answer to the machine is in the machine. It was meaning that the problem here is a management of information about rights. ICT, information technologies, are very effective by definition in dealing with information. And so there are a lot of possibilities to reduce dramatically the transactional cost through the use of technologies. There is a big trend of in this direction. Our experience in the Publisher Association, and I was personally the coordinator of the Arrow project. That was the project that was created a system to facilitate libraries to search for the right holder or for the commercial status of a book and many other things. And with the results like that, the British Library recognized that the time for search was dropped from 2 hours per title to 5 minutes per title. So a very, very interesting thing that you can obtain with the use of technology. It's quite complex because more in general, the technology is there, but the model for expressing the rights is not easy. I think I'm looking at my colleague at the Europeana. The way of expressing the rights in Europeana is inevitably still limited because there is not enough infrastructure to express the rights in this moment. So I think that we all together have to work in improving the infrastructure. The Booksetter was the leader in having a very good commercial data infrastructure, including bibliographic data, price and availability data, etc., thanks to the ISBN first and then the books in print catalog and whatever, the library catalogs. We have to build up something similar to in the rights field. That is the reason why I decided to brand the slides instead of my institution I work with, that is the Publishers Association, but with the brand of this project we are involved in, that is the rights data integration, that is a European project dealing with this stuff, trying to create standards in this field. The idea there, also in the RDI, is just starting from the concept of the Creative Commons. The Creative Commons is a very smart idea, in particular because it's very easy to understand what they mean. There is a version of, as you know, the version of the contract just for the lawyers, a version to be read by normal people. Also lawyers are not so normal, but that's another thing. And a version of the contract that can be read also by the machine in XML format. The concept is the same. It's a generalization of this project because, for instance, if you have a CC non-commercial, then you have no information about if you are a commercial reuser. If you have just to say, okay, this is a CC non-commercial, but I want to use for commercial purpose, what I have to do. You have the same information of any other piece of content that is posted in the internet with no, just all rights reserved. So the problem is to have information for enabling also for instance, reuse, not just in case it is for free, because it's a limited thing. If it is for a commercial reuse, possibly a museum would like to get some revenue back, as it has been for since decades. Then there is another thing. When you got the permission, very often, in the library field at least, if you got the author, they are very glad to give you, as a library, a permission for free to release in Creative Commons, because it's something that they are not exploiting. They can ask possibly 20 euros. They can live also without in most of the cases. And so they are very glad and generous to say to the library, okay, it's for free. So for the library, the problem is not the remuneration of the copyright in the large majority of the case. And there is an interesting project that was started again within the Arrow project. It's called Declare Your Rights, from the University Library in Innsbruck. That was limited to the PhD dissertation, but is to ask the people, give me the permission, declare your right that you give me the permission, so to instead of creating a much more complex infrastructure to do this. Conclusions, we need all to be open-minded. We as right holders should be open-minded in launching new business models, exploiting new licensing opportunities also. I think that the collective management organization should still have many changes in the way they conceive their business. There are all these issues also requires innovation in the way the collective management organization manages the rights on behalf of the right holders. and also libraries should be open-minded in dialoguing with the other parts in a way that is not just thinking that to the copyright is just as an obstacle of their plans. Thank you very much.